أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ولذيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشافي نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيتي الطيبين طاهرين معصومين صادقين أما بعد فقال الله تعالى في الكتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والهجرة صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight, inshallah, I wanted to take a little different approach because when I saw you guys on Friday night, didn't know what to expect, so I came back tonight, and inshallah, I don't like talking at people. I would rather have a conversation with you. Of course, I'm going to give the speech, but I like interaction. Tonight, inshallah, in my humble opinion, the verse that's being discussed is very important to us as Muslims. Now, the other night when I was here, I heard some things, saw some things, and it made me think. When it comes to our society, are we the ones who are supposed to make an impact or a change on our society? Or is it our society that should be changing us? Because many people here tonight, you'll find that your parents, great-grandparents, migrated to this country. I'm not exempt to that, but my people didn't migrate. We were kind of forced here. At any rate, we're here now. As Muslims, we are a minority, and as Shia Muslims, we are a minority of a minority in this country. And because we are that minority of a minority, we realize that people came here to escape religious persecution and oppression. Some people came to America to start their lives here, to make money, to become educated, and once they obtained enough money, they leave. But some people came here and decided, I am going to make this place my home. And if you made the intention to make this place your home, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a beautiful verse. If we follow it, we would definitely be successful. And it says that, and whoever migrates in the way of Allah, in Allah's way, he will find the earth many a place of refuge and abundant resources. And whoever leaves his house for Allah and his messenger, and then death overtakes him, his reward is indeed with Allah, and Allah is forgiving, most merciful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about making a hijrah. He's talking about leaving from one situation to another. This word migration, what does it really mean? There are different types of migrations. There's a migration when a person leaves from one geographical area to a next geographical area. It's the easiest form of migration. But there's a second type of migration where you leave from being those who are on the way to the pit of fire to being those who will be in Jannah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's another type of migration where you leave from a certain type of mindset and go into a different type of mindset. The question becomes, living here in America is hard. As Muslims sometimes. How many of you guys go to public school and went to public schools? How difficult was it in school if you didn't bring your lunch to eat? Where's the halal? There's no halal. Being in this country, it changes everything. But if you're diligent in bringing change about, you can make a change with anything. But living in this country, the verse that I gave to begin this majlis becomes of the utmost importance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O believers, Save yourselves first and your family from the fire whose fuel is men and stones. Save yourselves first. Everybody's been on planes, right? The first thing they tell you is, in case of an emergency, the oxygen masks are gonna fall down. Who do you put the mask on first, your baby or yourself? Yourself. Why do you put the mask on yourself first? Because if you pass out, who's going to take care of the baby? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, save ourselves first and then our family from the fire. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, save yourselves from the fire through your actions, and then save your family by doing these actions. The first thing he says is to first understand what it means to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for yourself. How do you know how to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You have to do self-study. How often are you reading Quran? How often are you reading Hadith? How often are you not just reading the Quran to recite in Arabiya, but how often are you actually reading the Quran for understanding, for comprehension? Because you can read anything, you could parrot anything, but if you don't understand what it's saying to you, then it has no effect. All you're doing is parroting. Then it says that you teach them the obligatory aspects. This is how you save your family of their religion. Not just that it's time to pray, but why do you pray? Why do you go down in the first sujood? Why do you go down in the second? What is the significance of that? Why do you begin the prayer standing up? Why do you recite the surahs that you recite in the beginning? And why do you end the prayer the way that you do? Give you some examples. In the beginning of the prayer, we all get into takbiratul ihram, right? Big point of submission. Police come to you, they tell you to do what? Put your hands up. I submit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we put those hands up to here, we are submitting totally to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we're standing, we're in our strongest positions. This is where we are. And we're reciting back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what He's recited to us. Surah Al-Fatiha is not only the first chapter of the Quran, but it is a dua. It is the perfect dua. Why is it the perfect dua? Because it begins by allowing you to know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, who's most merciful, most beneficent. What is beneficence? What does that mean? It means that somebody's giving you something when you didn't earn it, when you didn't deserve it. What did you do for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you everything that He's given to you? And believe it or not, everything you have is from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then He says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praises are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not some of the praises, but all praise. If you love what the sun does for you, do you praise the sun for bringing you the heat? Or do you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for creating the sun to give you the heat? You have to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. And then He goes on to say, Maliki Yawmiddin, He is the master of the day of judgment. Which means on that day that everybody is joined together. That there will be no more kings. That there will be no more other folks to come up to challenge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this, but it's Him. Thee alone do we worship. This is our part. Thee alone do we worship. Is that true? Do we only worship Allah? Do we worship Allah at all? On those cold mornings, do we want to get up for Fajr? For those long days during the holy month of Ramadan that we've had for the past few years? Do we want to fast during that time? Are we praying every day? Some of us are, some of us aren't. So we say, thee alone do we worship, and you alone do we ask for help. Show us your straight path. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. This straight path. This is a prayer to us, from us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to Him to give us guidance. What is the best guidance along with the Quran? Ahlul Bayt. This is why we commemorate the birthdays and the death days of the members of Ahlul Bayt, because they are the ones who have given us the examples, and their example is better than any other people's examples. And then he says, show us your favor, and don't let us fall into that place where those who reject you go into. Then the Imam, he says, to save your family, that we as parents have to teach you what's good and what's bad. If we don't do that as parents, then we have not done our job and we failed you. And we're responsible for that. So this verse is especially poignant to us. It's important to us because in this country, where's the Islam? Do you find Islam in your school? Do you find Islam on your block? Do you find Islam at the places where you gather? You have to find Islam in the Islamic center. Outside of the Islamic center, you're being pulled in so many different directions. You're being pulled by so many different ideologies. You get more information about worldly things than you do about Islam. So that's why sometimes there are many of us who, after a while, they don't show up to the Islamic centers anymore. Because we make sure that you have your secular education, but not so much with your Islamic education. Some people may say that we live in this place and we're minorities. We should only get what we have in the Islamic places. As a minority, can we really have an effect on our society? We know that our society has an effect on us. So what I want to do tonight, inshallah, is I want to go through the Quran and I want to give you stories about people who were in the minority, who decided not to allow their societies to change them, and show you how they changed their society and how it is that we right now are able to have Islam, inshallah. I want to begin with one of my favorite Nabis in the Quran, and that is Nabi Nuh, alayhi salatu wasalam. Does anyone know what the term Nuh means? It means he who cried. Why did he cry? Because he talked to his people for 950 years and they still didn't do what was right. Listen, kind of strange. I'm not talking to anybody for 9 years about the same thing if they're not going to be cooperative with me. Forget that. I'm not going to talk to nobody for 9 months. 9 weeks? Not even 9 hours. I'm tempted not to even talk to you past 9 minutes if you're not listening to what it is I have to say. But Nabi Nuh, day after day after day, he went to his people and he said, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Leave alone what it is that you're doing. And I'm going to give you a consequence for what happens if you don't stop what you're doing and follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nabi Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam was charged with the responsibility of building the Safina, the ark. While he's building this ark, the people are like, man, you're landlocked. Why are you building this vessel that's supposed to be out at sea? Why are you telling us these things about La ilaha illallah? How many people were with Nabi Nuh during this time? It was him, his family, and a handful of people. That's it. He was a part of the minority. But he was strong enough because he had the conviction to say, you know what? I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I believe in this message that I'm going to give. And because he believed, he built this ark. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he sent the floods down, who died? Everybody who didn't listen to him. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, he gives us something very beautiful. He says that my Ahlul Bayt are like the ark of Noah. Anyone who embarked on it was saved. Anybody who doesn't, they perished. Nabi Nuh was in the minority, but he did what was right. Now, I'm going to ask forgiveness now, not because I should be forgiven, because I'm only giving what's coming from the Quran, but some people might feel a little uneasy about it. The next story in the Quran that I want to talk about is the story of Nabi Lut and the people of Lut. This is a very, very, very important lesson. For those of you who don't know, I was raised as a Christian. The Bible and the Quran, they have this story together. But this story that I want to give to you, I want to give it to you in such a way that you understand where we are right now and what your responsibilities are. Because there will be people who will tell you that a certain type of lifestyle is okay. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us these examples and stories in the Quran so that we will know what we can and what we cannot do. So I'm going to give you the story of Lut, but I'm going to give you the story of Lut from the biblical point of view. It is said that the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had gone to Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, and they gave him good news of him having a son, but right afterwards he said that we're going to Sodom and Gomorrah and we're going to destroy the people there. Nabi Ibrahim said, you're going to this place, my nephew Lut is there. Are you going to destroy him too? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for those people who are there, they did something in the earth that was lewd. It was something that wasn't done before, and it's something that should never be done, period. Nabi Ibrahim, he began to have this conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is it we call Nabi Ibrahim? When we recite the Ziyarat Waratha, what do we say about Nabi Ibrahim? Khalilillah. What does that mean? He's the friend. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is having a conversation with his friend. How did that conversation go? What was at the crux of this conversation? Nabi Ibrahim was empathetic towards the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. Nabi Ibrahim began to speak to his friend Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Ya Allah, do you have to destroy these people? What if there are 50 righteous people in this town? Would you save the town? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to his friend, yes, if there are 50 righteous people that's in this town, I will save the town. Nabi Ibrahim, he steps back and he says, that was a little too easy. Maybe Allah just knows that it's not going to be 50 people. What about if there are 40 people? Allah says, sure, I'll save the town. Nabi Ibrahim goes all the way down to 20 people. If there are 20 righteous people in this town, I will save this town. There were not 20 righteous people. Nabi Ibrahim, the angels left him and they went to Lut. And when they went to Lut, Lut asked the same question. You're going to destroy these people. Do you have to destroy them all? This was a grave sin. This was something that should have never been done. I'm not here to talk about some type of lifestyle, but because of the situation that we live here in America, this is something that is being pushed out there in front of you more than it ever was when I was a child. What a person did in their own household was what it was. No one was coming to me to tell me that I should live my life this way or that way when it came down to who it is that I can marry or not marry. That was something that was relegated to your faith, to your household, and to things like that. But now in the public schools, they're telling you that it's okay. What should your stand be? I'm not telling you to go out there and say, hey, astaghfirullah, you're a big sinner. Why am I not telling you to go do that? Because how many of you go and tell somebody who lies? You have friends who lie. They lie every day. You don't go and say, astaghfirullah, you're a liar. Get away from me. You have people who cheat. You have people who steal. A sin is a sin is a sin, but if you are a follower of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, you do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, which means that when someone comes to you and they try to give you a certain type of lifestyle, you say, no, I cannot deal with that because my book tells me that this is not right. When it came to Nabi Lut, was he in the minority or was he in the majority? He was in a small minority. But because he decided to do what was right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewarded him by not allowing him to be killed with all of those who died in Sodom and Gomorrah. Then we come to one of my favorites again, Nabi Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Nabi Musa, he was over in Egypt. And Egypt was something very, very special. Do you realize that in Egypt, you know how these rappers and some of these guys now have gold teeth? In Egypt, their whole grills was gold. They had earrings. Their chariots, like people, they trick out their cars. These guys' chariots had gold and emeralds on it. The Egyptians found a way to make a battery. The Egyptians had like plumbing, water coming into their places. The Egyptians built the pyramids. Now some people, you'll argue about that. Okay, until you prove that they didn't build the pyramids, I'm going to say they built the pyramids. How did they do that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, go study the people because they were more technologically sound than you are right now. To this very day, they don't know how it is that the people built the pyramids. So you know what they're telling us now? Oh, the aliens came and did it. Why? Because scientifically, they say, how did they make these boulders? How did they make this thing so symmetrical? What tools did they use? How are these things lining up on the lines of latitude and longitude? How is it that when the equinox comes, that it hits this place perfectly every time? How did they do these calculations? They didn't have calculators like we have now. Nabi Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was sent to these people and he told them, look, stop doing what you're doing, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do right by God, and he'll do right by you. Was Musa in the majority or was he in the minority? He was truly in the minority. He left. After he protected a Hebrew from being oppressed by an Egyptian, he left. But when he came back, he came to Fir'aun, who was the most powerful person at that particular point in time, and he pleaded with him. He talked to him to do what? To change from what he was doing. Now look at what the Quran says. See, we think that we have enemies and we have to speak to people a certain type of way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Nabi Musa to speak to Fir'aun with what? Respect. Why? Because he raised him. He gave him that respect. And he said to him, if you do what is right, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you. If I'm the Egyptians and I'm looking at everything that's happening, I may be arrogant like Fir'aun because I'm like, man, I have camels, I have horses, I have all this technology, my mouth is blinging out of control. What are you going to do to me? Nothing. But Nabi Musa said, I serve this Allah who is greater than you. He created you. He created everything that was here. Now watch Fir'aun. Reminds me of somebody that we may know. Fir'aun says, somebody greater than me? Somebody actually greater than me? You tripping. Listen, build me a ladder to make it into the heavens so that I could go up in this ladder and I could kill the one who you say that is greater than me. This is who it is that our Nabi was dealing with. He's in the majority. He's in the minority, while the majority thought they had all the power in the world. But when it was time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show Fir'aun his signs, those who were closest to Fir'aun began to recognize that what this man is doing is something different from what it is that we're doing. Fir'aun had his magicians. They said by the power of Ra, they threw the sticks. The sticks began to move. Nabi Musa said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. He threw his staff. His staff ate the sticks. The magician said, man, listen, not me. I'm done. Fir'aun said, cut off their right hand and their left foot. You know what the magician said? If that's what you got to do, I'm going to do this. Because the God that Musa serves is the one and true living God. Again, was Musa in the minority or the majority? Do you think Fir'aun would have said, you know, I'm going to stop being arrogant and I'm going to follow what's right? After all the plagues hit these people, and Nabi Musa was on his way out of town, Fir'aun said, you know what? I'm going to make one last run at him. I'm going to go get him. So he's trying to cross the Red Sea. But as he's crossing the Red Sea, what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he brings the water down on him. But what does Allah tell us in the Quran? He says, and Fir'aun will be a sign, an ayat, for everybody to see. So everyone sees these mummies. You think that's coincidence? Who affected the society? Was Musa affected by his society? Or did Musa affect his society? As Muslims in this country, we have to be the ones who affect our society. Nabi Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. Again, he was in the minority. The majority of the people didn't want him to preach the word. Nabi Isa was given miracles. To this very day, some of us wouldn't even think the things that Nabi Isa did were miracles. You know why? Because we know CPR. You know, we could put the electrodes on the heart and boop, get somebody to come back to life. So bringing somebody back to life, for us right now, is like, whatever. But Nabi Isa gave the blind their sight again. Not those who went blind, but those who were born blind. Nabi Isa was able to create a bird, a bat, and breathe into it by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it began to fly. He's given these people all of these things. He's in the majority. Instead of them saying, you know what? Let me go on and get with this guy because he's doing what's right. They decide, nah, we're going to try to crucify him. So those people have been living in peril ever since. The most successful individual that ever walked the face of this earth was a man who was born in a type of situation where he wasn't supposed to be successful. The most successful human ever to walk the face of this earth is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, alayhi salatu wasalam. Our prophet. How old was he when his father died? Aha. So before he came into this earth, he was already an orphan. How long did he live with his mother before she died? After she dies, then his grandfather dies. I'm a therapist. I talk to people who had traumatic experiences in life. To lose both of your parents, to not have them around, some people, they don't get over that at all. But our prophet, he did. Our prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi was the only prophet in history that took his situation from where he was the minority and turned it before he died into the majority. How did he do it? What was the secret to his success? They called him As-Sadiq and Al-Amin. This is before he announced to the world that he was Rasulullah. By his example, when he was a little boy, the people would look at him. They would see him and they would say, what a mannerable young man this is. When they began to talk to him, they said, what wisdom this young man has. He doesn't have this ordinary wisdom. As he got a little older and he began to look at society and he saw the ills of society, he said, you know what? People here who are doing business with one another aren't doing business right. So he created the Better Business Bureau of Arabia at that particular point in time and allowed those people who were coming in to do trade not to be cheated out of their money. Our prophet, in today's terms, he would be an independent contractor. Because what our prophet did was, he was import-export for his clients. They would pay him to go out, pick up goods, bring them back, sometimes sell them, or take goods somewhere else and bring back the money. There was something special about our prophet. You know what was special about him? Nobody robbed the prophet. Nobody knew he was the prophet, but nobody robbed the prophet. He was a bad man. Everybody else is getting robbed. He's not getting robbed. Alhamdulillah. Not only that, but the merchants, they started noticing something. When the prophet took your load from one place to the next, other merchants were coming back and like, you know, I lost half your load, so half your money was gone, but they pocketed the money. Not only did the prophet come back with what it was that they expected, but the prophet made a bigger profit on their money than they would have if he didn't take it. This is who our prophet is. Our prophet, sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, when he went out and he dealt with the people, he dealt with them in the best of ways. So much so that he attracted the attention of this wealthy lady by the name of Khadija. How was Islam built? It was built on the wealth of Khadijah and on the back of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, with the leadership of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. But when he began his mission, was he in the minority or the majority? How bad was it for the Prophet? Do you realize that when the Prophet went to the Kaaba, that when he began to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that people would come and take animal innards and throw on him? Do you realize that when the Prophet went out to preach, that sometimes young kids would pick up stones and stone him and run him out of town? Did that stop our Prophet from doing what it was he needed to do? No way, because he knew he had a plan. And he executed that plan, and it didn't matter that there were more people than him. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this battle, the Battle of Badr. And within this Battle of Badr, how many people were with the Prophet? 313. How many people were with the opposite side? More than 1,000. So at least 3 to 1. At least 3 to 1. Who was the majority and who was the minority? Those who were with the Prophet were in the minority. How was the battle won at Badr? Was it ever a point where the thousands confronted the 313? Or was it one man who, when he went out to single battle, he went against the best warrior that the Arabs had to have? Who was that man? Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. How was he able to take charge of this battle, knowing that they were in the minority? You see, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam had the attitude that each and every one of you should always have. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam says that I was the first of those to accept Muhammad as the prophet. While others ran away, I ran towards him. He was in the minority, but he understood that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to bring a victory through this minority, and before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had taken his prophet away from this world, he made them the majority. But after the death of Rasulullah, what happened? The shaitan is always busy. Those people who never wanted the prophet to succeed, they began to rear their ugly heads. In the beginning, they were the minority. But by the time our prophet's body turned cold, it appeared as though they became the majority again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the historians, they say the only time that human life had actually had a utopian type of lifestyle, a lifestyle where everybody was treated equal, was when the Prophet was running Islam from the city of Medina. Because the Jews had rights, the Christians had rights, the non-believers had rights, the Muslims had rights. How did the Prophet judge each of them? Through their own book. Who does that now? Nobody cares about your rights. Rasulullah did that. But after the death of Rasulullah, those who were righteous went back into the minority. And those who were righteous, they began to follow who? Ahlul Bayt. How was it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided that he was going to restore Islam? How was it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to bring justice back into this world? How was it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to allow for us right here, right now, today, to still continue to call ourselves Muslims? It came in this small place called Karbala. 72 people against the whole world, it seemed like. Because there were tens of thousands of people on the other side who decided, you know what, I don't care anything about this Islam. Muhammad made it up to control the Arabs. But it's our job to destroy what he had built. 72. How many of you are going to Karbala? Put your hands up. How many of you plan to go to Karbala? Put your hands up. When you go to Karbala, there are a few things that you're going to find. You've probably seen posters and pictures of how the armies were set up. There was a huge army. For those of you who know, you know where the tents of Ahlul Bayt was. You know how far it was from the tents to the river, to the Euphrates rivers. It takes you less than 5 minutes to walk from the tents to the water. They put thousands of soldiers in front of this water. I asked the question the other night. I said everybody at Karbala had a jihad. Do you know what the army's commander said about this water? They said, if the members of Ahlul Bayt, if Abu Fadl Abbas, if Hussein ibn Ali, if Ali ibn Hussein, if the young boys was to get some water, we would not be able to defeat just them. They were in the what? In the minority. But because they had faith, because they had certainty in the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they did not allow what was in front of them to affect how it is that they were going to change the world. Now, every year, we all gather together to celebrate that minority. But how does that affect you and I today? I said that each and every one of us had, each and every one of those people at Karbala, they had a jihad. Each and every one of you here today, you too have a jihad. What is your jihad? Are you going to be like the 72 of Imam Hussein? Or are you going to be like the army of Yazid? This is your jihad. Which side are you going to pick? Because just like those 72 had their imam, we too have our imam. And we are in the majority of those who even actually believe in the imam. We are the minority of a minority. But what are we doing to assure that there's a victory for Imam Mahdi Ajalallahu Ta'ala Faraju Sharif? Like there was a victory for Rasulullah. What do we need to do right now as minorities? Number one, we have to ensure that we save ourselves, that we recommit ourselves to the Quran, that we recommit ourselves to praying, that we recommit ourselves to fasting, that we recommit ourselves to do a kamel, that we recommit ourselves to do a tawassul, that we recommit ourselves to these centers, not only during these times, but every Eid al-Jum'ah, because it's an Eid. We have to teach our children, and don't be ashamed of telling them what is right from what is wrong. We have to let them know that even though all your friends are doing these bad things out here, you're still doing what's right. You know why you're doing it? Because if we tell them that, if we teach them that, then Imam Jaffari Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam said that when we do things and we put it on our conscious minds that we're doing it for Imam Sahib Asri wa Zaman, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us as if we were already with our Imam. Allah has given us an advantage that He didn't give the followers of Imam Hussein. Those who were with Imam Hussein, when they died, they became shaheed. Right now, if we die with the belief of Imam Mahdi, and we do something in the name of Imam Mahdi, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to our Aima, they said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us as if we were with Him already. Our minority is going to become the majority because with the Imam, he's going to bring everything that we were looking for. So on a night like tonight, I think about Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. And I think about how he walked through the Baqi. We're seeing all of his friends and his relatives die. I think about him as I look at these young boys in here, as he passed by Qasim, who was cut up in pieces. As he passed by Ali Asghar, who has the arrow in him. As he passed by all of these individuals, and he's all alone, and he cries out, "Who is there to help me?" Brothers and sisters, on the night like tonight, I see my Imam as he engages in battle, as he goes through the enemy, and I see how the enemy begins to scatter, and there's only just one him. And I see how it is that he has this faith, and he calls out to his brother, to Abbas. He says, "Ya Abbas, do you see how your brother is warring today?" And he goes to the river, and he's ready to drink. But these cowards decide that they're going to fill him with arrows. And our Imam, as he falls from his horse, and as he's lying on the ground, and as shimmer is getting on his chest, and as he begins to cut with the dull knife, all I could think of that my Imam is thinking of is, "Ya Allah, thank you for giving me the victory like you gave my father the victory when he was in Masjid al-Kufa." And in that instance, he thought about you and I, because he knew that his great-great-grandson, Imam Mahdi Ajalallahu Ta'ala Farajul Sharif, would come to this earth. And unlike him, our Imam would not be slaughtered, but he would bring the victory back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and restore this world back the way that it's supposed to be. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Oh Allah, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and realize that the minority is not a bad thing. Thank you for giving us the opportunity of having the example of Rasulullah and the example of Imam Hussein to give us faith that if we follow what's right, that Imam Mahdi Ajalallahu Ta'ala Rajul Sharif will come and bring victory to us as Muslims. We pray that you allow these young folks to stand strong in Islam and not to deviate. We pray all of this bi Haqqi Muhammad wa alihi al-Tahir. We close out this part of the Majlis with a Surah Al-Fatiha, but before that, the loudest of salawats. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Alhamdulillah.